Hi, this is Ushio, and today we're going to look at Yoshihiro Tatsumi's A Drifting Life, and this book is very big. It's over 800 pages, all in one, and it covers a lot of stuff. It's very cool. So Yoshihiro Tatsumi, he's kind of like the creator of Gekiga, and this book kind of covers what Gekiga is and how it was developed. So most people would know Tatsumi's work through stuff like this. We got Pushman here, and it's kind of like lots of short stories about lots of kind of depressed people who are going through their everyday lives, and it's not a whole lot of fun. It's kind of like life isn't all bells and whistles sometimes. Sometimes it just sucks, and that is the expression that a lot of these Gekiga comics kind of seem to go with sometimes, but that's kind of what we're going to get into with this book. So at the front of this book, it's got a quote. So the quote on the front of the book says, "In the hands of a talent like Tatsumi, hidden worlds are excavated and the dark corners of the human condition are illuminated." And honestly, that would apply to Pushman, like down there, but not this book. So Drifting Life is an autobiographical work for Tatsumi, but not really his life so much, more his professional life and how he created manga and how he evolved it into Gekiga manga. So it starts in 1945 and it goes right to about 1960, which is his formative period on how he liked to create his work. Once he hits the 60s, 70s, he's found what he wants to do and he moves forward with that. So this goes through the earlier sections of his creative process. It's not all dark and meaningful like the front blurb would have you believe. That's attributed to other of his works, and it's kind of why I was put off reading this originally, because I kind of bought it. I identified that it was probably gonna not be on the shelves for too long, so I did get a copy, and on the dust it collected. I've been meaning to get through this one for a while, so I read it through, and it's good. It's a lot of fun. It's really raised my interest in a certain period of manga that is kind of underrepresented on what we can get translated over here. So there aren't too many manga that come out from the 50s, so if you want to learn and see some names dropped, you will discover quite a lot about how manga was back in the day and how it developed from World War II and into what it was over time. And this book is heavy. This book is heavy, so I'm going to put it down. But I'll move to the center so you can, that's it, so you got a bit more activity on the screen. So yeah, Drifting Life, it kind of centers in Osaka, and it seemed like a lot of the creators back in the day were based in Osaka. A lot of the major publishers were over in Tokyo, but where the exciting stuff was going on was more to the west. Tatsumi's just a kid in school, he starts creating his manga. You'd send in like one postcard at a time, maybe like 4-panel manga, this kind of thing, yonkoma, and you send it in and he'd win competitions, maybe get some pocket money back in return. And that was how he started making manga. And as he kind of got involved with it, it started picking up. There's lots of magazines and opportunities to send to. Like the manga industry was really starting to pick up. And throughout all of these times, you learn basically people didn't have televisions and the cinema was really starting to develop. But people didn't really have a lot in the way of entertainment at home. So instead of watching TV, a lot of people just read manga instead. So yeah, Tatsumi is writing his manga and he's doing all his competitions and he's being quite successful at it. And he starts to talk to like publishers and this kind of stuff. Also, he meets Osamu Tezuka, who you probably know because of like Astro Boy, Blackjack, and like his famous works like that. And even back then, he was referred to as a very important manga creator. Today, he's referred to as the god of manga. But even back then, he was a big noise because he was pushing manga from being just simple comic strips that you would see in a newspaper into like fully developed stories. So Tezuka was like a hero of Tatsumi, and they did meet very early on. And eventually Tezuka, they go their separate ways. Tezuka goes off to Tokyo and Tatsumi's left in Osaka to keep developing his work. And you just get to see all these creators and a lot of these publishers. And it's so interesting. If you just want to nerd out and be a huge geek about manga back in the day, this is such a good book for that. And people are going to hate the comparison. But if you liked Bakuman, and it was a manga about making manga, and it got really into the nitty gritty about what can we make that's going to intrigue readers, how can we push that forward and make ourselves more successful. This is a similar thing, but this is real. This is based on real publishers and real trends, and it goes through the decisions that Tatsumi made, what publishers he did and didn't work with, and what reasons for that. Does he want to make short stories? Does he want to make longer stories? Does he want to develop a new style, which is what this goes into, his Gekiga style. So there's quite a few different people that you need to be aware of, but the main three, or four, you got Tatsumi himself, and he always changes the names of himself and his immediate family. Everybody else, he uses their real names. There's also his brother, a fellow creator. But in terms of other people, we have got... So one of his fellow peers is Takao Saito, who you should know for Golgo 13. And back in the day, they were just doing like kind of crude stories for like children, young audiences. And they developed into, this is famous and everybody knows it's kind of aimed at older, more mature readers. And the other artist, who is kind of criminally underlooked, and hopefully it will be addressed more fully in time, Masahiko Matsumoto, who, as far as I'm aware, has only been published twice in English. So he's someone I'm going to have to read quite soon because he's quite an important figure. Matsumoto himself also did a manga based on the Gekiga development, so it hasn't been translated and I'd love to check it out. It's called Gekiga Fanatics, and honestly, I think it's just a matter of time before someone tries to translate that. I'm really looking forward to seeing what that one was about and get his perspective on things as well, because he developed his own style of manga. So over time, you get to realise that Tatsumi and a lot of his peers, they're kind of developing sort of a dissatisfaction. They want to push forward, they want to develop their work more and more and more. But there's a developing audience of people getting older, but they still want to read these comics. And so these guys want to push forward artistically alongside an audience that are hopefully going to enjoy more sophisticated works that handle more challenging themes. And this is kind of where the idea of Gekiga starts to come from. There's also in the market, there weren't really like bookshops so much because books were expensive and no one had much money after the war. So there was lots of like rental bookshops, and there were manga made specifically for these rental manga bookshops. So there's like this magazine called Kage, or Shadow, and Tatsumi and his publisher and a lot of his peers start doing work in there that is a little bit more hard-edged, a lot of crime, and he starts to get really into like hard-boiled novels reading on the side, and that influences what he wants to do. So the majority of the manga is just like, in this year, this month, I did this, I talked to this publisher, then I decided I was going to do this. So it's not like a big, deep philosophical consideration on how I can make manga into this more sophisticated form of media. That's kind of sort of on the side. It's also like, what's going to keep a roof over my head? How am I going to get money? Can I get paid? Is this going to be a good professional decision? And the more it went on, the more and more I got into it, because I'm starting to recognise a couple of these names from doing, like reading about Tatsumi and reading about his people, and then you kind of work alongside, like on the internet, you do a couple of searches. Who's this person? You got this in this book. I can maybe pick that up later. And it's kind of given me a little bit of a shopping list. And also, there are big gaps. There is a lot of artists and creators here who haven't got any kind of translated representation. And that's kind of sad. And it makes me really look forward to, hopefully, more of this stuff getting picked up in the future. So one of the coolest things is Tatsumi's enduring passion for like his work and his manga. He loves manga. And he loves talking about it, like with his brother at home. They go home and they kind of weigh up, this was good, that wasn't so good, maybe we should try this next time. And he's just always trying new things. What's going to be exciting to create? What's going to be exciting to like produce? And it's so cool. But it's such a cool first-hand account of seeing someone who went through the history of all of modern manga from the very start, from like end of World War II, all the way through. So yeah, it covers up to 1960, and from then it's kind of like, the rest is history. There is an epilogue where it kind of goes into what a drifting life even means. And it kind of has a little bit of a thought on Osamu Tezuka and the impact he had as well. But it's such an interesting book. It does seem to be out of print now. And it was originally like $35. So it wasn't that cheap anyway. And if you think about how much would you pay for 800 pages of manga, that's like 4 books. And how much do 4 books cost you? It's about the same as what this is going for now. So I would still say it's worth picking up if you really want to get into like the history of manga. And I read about 500 pages of one sitting. It reads quite well. I didn't really have an issue getting through it. Sometimes works like this can be a bit of a drag, but honestly, no, it was no problem at all. The art's kind of like, it's fairly standard. It's not super expressive. It's just telling its story. It does touch on some of Tatsumi's life and some of the incidents that happened throughout his life and throughout Japanese popular history. So you can kind of see, what was a good film at the time, what was a popular song or popular advert on TV. So it does have like fuller context on what was going on with Tatsumi's life, but the primary focus is on the manga. So yeah, Please don't hate me for the Bakuman comparison, but honestly, it's about as close as I can get. It's cool. I absolutely recommend it if you want to get into the background of manga, and this is basically what you need to read. So yeah, this is A Drifting Life, one of the biggest books that you can get. There are bigger, but not too many. Big old book, and it's cool. It's very, very good. So yeah, that is Drifting Life. And this is Usho signing off, and hopefully I will see you next time.